Oh, what a story, Peter. Thanks for having me, mate. And good on you for commemorating it. It's the most amazing story. This bright, enthusiastic kid grows up in Yorkshire, looking at the stars. Looked at the stars endlessly. This kid, right? James Cook gets a job on the docks, working for a number of sailors. Turns himself into Great Britain's greatest cartographer, a legend, a young legend already of his time. Gets a secret instruction from King George III. Can you set off in a coal boat, in a coal carrier, a real kind of almost like a Chevy of a boat, not much of a boat at all, but a boat that can go long distances. He sets off with 94 people, enough provisions for 18 months to survive. Hopefully, along the way, he hopes he might meet some people who might give him some more supplies. And King George III gives him some instructions. He says, can you go chart and report on the incredible transit of Venus, which to do that, he will have to find this little dot in the ocean called Tahiti, and he does that. And if he does that, then the king wants him to go a little bit further to the great unknown southern continent that is just an abstract thought. It's just an idea in people's heads, Peter. It's as unknown as the moon was in the 1950s, and that's why this thing is so incredible. Yeah. It's as big as a moonshot.
And as you wrote about, and as we all know, it's a divisive issue. This one, I mean, his arrival here does mark the beginning of Aboriginal dispossession. But still, I mean, and you argue that it has to be remembered, and his character should be explored still.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll be the first to acknowledge the 200 years of issues that moment prompted. And we must remember that this week. And we do well to incorporate those stories, those Indigenous histories from the shore, absolutely, as we recall the amazing events that were happening from the ship. But, mate, in a time of giants, this guy stood above almost all of them. You know what I mean? In times of those great explorers, this guy was head and shoulders above almost all. I believe almost all except for maybe Magellan. But the guy transformed. He goes sailing off, leaves Plymouth at 1768. 11 years later, he's basically finished his journeying around the world. And by the time he's done, they have to put a whole new hemisphere on maps. That's what that guy does. And I just think this week it's so, and I just love what you guys are doing on Wednesday, because it's really important for us all to remember, look at some of the issues, but let's just make sure we keep in mind, we remember the character of this guy, and that he did go onto that land on that anniversary we're celebrating on Wednesday. In that moment, he went onto those sands with kind of compassion, understanding. The idea from the king was to go into Botany Bay and really make peace and really do everything possible that he could to kind of engender harmony with the people that he was interacting with. Of course, as we know, it didn't go that way, because that's just history. That's how history unfolds. The thing I'd love to remember this week, actually, mate, if I can say, is, for me, the lesson we should take this week is Cooktown. Now, Cooktown, for me, should be the historical capital of Australia. Cooktown is where basically the Endeavour went back up, and it nearly sank. It ran into coral, nearly sank at the Endeavour River on the top of Queensland. And for 6 weeks, almost 7 weeks, Cook and his men had the most incredible interactions with the Indigenous locals. I'm talking, they learned about kangaroos, they learned about food, they learned about land management, they learned about interactions and languages. The first recordings, those moments, you've got Sydney Parkinson sitting down with Indigenous elders, slowly painting their faces and interacting. And I don't know, I just feel there's ways, Peter, that we can really take this really difficult subject that we're clearly finding pretty hard to talk about, but we can really learn from lessons that Cook was finding. He learned lessons along the way, you know what I mean? He learned lessons as he went up the coast, and I think we can, still, I think we're mature enough to kind of get there ourselves.
I mean, I was a kid in Cairns, so I grew up. I used to go fishing in Cooktown, so it was a privilege to be able to do that.
Right?
when I was a youngster and jump in the old Land Cruiser with my grandpop. Hey, Trent, great to get your thoughts. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. And if you can, folks, do read Trent's articles that are online now too, talking about all of that. It's a great